Your Excellencies,
नाज़रीन, कोलंबो में ट्रेड एंड इन्वेस्टमेंट कॉन्फ्रेंस का आगाज़ हो चुका है।
Thank you very much, sir.
नाज़रीन, कोलंबो में ट्रेड एंड इन्वेस्टमेंट कॉन्फ्रेंस का आगाज़ हो चुका है। कौमी तराने से इस कॉन्फ्रेंस का बाकायदा आगाज़ किया गया। आपको बताते चलें कि वज़ीर आज़म इमरान खान वहाँ पर मौजूद हैं।
Mahinda Rajapaksa, the Prime Minister of Sri Lanka, honorable ministers and state ministers, esteemed business delegates from Sri Lanka and Pakistan, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum, good morning, Ayobuwan. Welcome to the first ever Pakistan-Sri Lanka Trade and Investment Conference organized by the Ministry of Commerce, Government of Pakistan in collaboration with Trade Development Authority of Pakistan, Board of Investment Pakistan and the High Commission of Pakistan in Sri Lanka. To officially start the day's proceedings, I would like to invite His Excellency Major General Retired Muhammad Saad Khattak, the High Commissioner of Pakistan to Sri Lanka, for his welcome remarks.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل اللهم مالك الملك تؤتي الملك من تشاء وتنزع الملك ممن تشاء وتعز من تشاء وتذل من تشاء بيدك الخير إنك على كل شيء قدير. In the Holy Quran, the Allah Almighty asks the Holy Prophet, peace be upon him, to say, our Allah, the owner of sovereignty, you grant kingdom to whom you will, and you take back kingdom from whom you will. You give honor to whom you please, and you disgrace whom you want. In your hand is all the good. Surely you have all the power over all things. Sadaqallahul Azim. His Excellency, Honorable Prime Minister Imran Khan, Prime Minister of the Islamic Republic of Pakistan, Honorable Prime Minister of Sri Lanka, Excellency Mahinda Rajapaksa, respected dignitaries, esteemed businessmen, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum and good afternoon. It gives me a pleasure to welcome this large presence of businessmen as well as government officials of both countries at the Pakistan-Sri Lanka Trade and Investment Conference organized by the Ministry of Commerce, Trade Development Authorities of Pakistan and Board of Investment of Sri Lanka in coordination with the High Commission of Pakistan in Colombo. It clearly reflects our common desire for sustained socio-economic development of our people through mutually beneficial bilateral trade and economic ties. Ladies and gentlemen, the Pakistan-Sri Lanka relationship is deep-rooted, time-tested, and proven. The two countries stood by each other in the most difficult periods of our short history. It's time that the benefits of that relationship are translated towards the economic development of our two people. A change of focus from defense and security-centric relationship towards greater economic, social, and cultural engagement is the need of the time. The two countries enjoy strong historical trade legacies dating back to the period of Ashoka, the Buddhist civilization in the region, and the recent British colonialist period. These historical bonds need to be built upon to the benefit of our two people. Our free trade agreement, signed in 2005, need to be fully utilized to exploit the true potential and capacity of our countries. I am very hopeful that through the showcasing of our investment opportunities today, we would not only assist our business communities in enhancing our traditional imports and exports between our two countries in our respective areas of strength, but will also open new avenues of joint ventures between our businesses in various high potential areas such as textile, manufacturing, pharmaceuticals, agriculture, information technology, and most important, tourism, including the religious tourism. The development of China-Pakistan Economic Corridor can be used as a new available pedestal to further accelerate our bilateral economic engagement for mutual benefits. I hope that the bureaucracies at both ends would catch up to and gear up to the vision and leadership that the two countries are bestowed with right now. In the end, ladies and gentlemen, there is no doubt that Pakistan and Sri Lanka enjoy excellent relations, but today it is time to move closer to new areas and further cement our relationship. I thank you all for your presence here today. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency. May I now request the Honorable Advisor to the Prime Minister of Pakistan for Commerce and Investment to share his views with the distinguished guests. Mr. Abdul Razak Daud, ladies and gentlemen.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. His Excellency Mr. Imran Khan, Prime Minister of Pakistan, His Excellency Mahendra Rajapaksa, Prime Minister of Sri Lanka, Honorable Ministers from both Sri Lanka and Pakistan, distinguished guests, respected members of the business community, ladies and gentlemen. It is a great honor and a pleasure to be here at this trade and investment conference that has been organized by the Ministry of Commerce. The aim of this conference is to bring the business communities of the two countries together to be able to discuss and explore new ways, new ideas of finding new avenues and new opportunities for increasing trade and investment. The presence of the two prime ministers and the high dignitaries from the two countries is a testament of the importance the two governments are attaching to the trade between our two countries, and this is a wonderful feeling for all of us. Fellow businessmen and businesswomen, under the leadership of our Prime Minister, we have come here not to fear the future, but to shape it. And we feel that such conferences as this will begin the shaping of that future. Also, in shaping that future, I would like to raise a few points. We signed an FTA with Sri Lanka in June 2005. Since then, our exports have doubled, and our exports are now around $400 million. This seems good, but I honestly feel not good enough. It doesn't match the relationship that we have between our countries, and I feel that it should be much, much better. To further that trade through the FTA, we had a very constructive meeting with the trade minister today, and we discussed all elements of the PTA and the ideas of including services and investment as part of the FTA. We will be meeting again in April, and inshallah, we want to take all the points, their points and ours, and be able to implement them from our side in our budget in June this year. Ladies and gentlemen, an important and an interesting challenge, and a far-reaching one, is what I want to now talk about. Under the direct patronage of our Prime Minister, the Ministry of Commerce has been interacting extensively with Afghanistan and Uzbekistan on opening trade routes, free movement of trucking, and a PTA with each of the countries. Also, we have offered both the countries lease facilities at our ports at Gwadar, for staging their exports beyond Pakistan. In the same manner, Uzbekistan has offered Pakistan a staging facility inside Uzbekistan at Terzmir, so we can also send our goods and be able to go beyond Uzbekistan into the Central Asian republics. In a similar manner, we discussed with the Honorable Trade Minister today that why should we not look at offering the same facility to Sri Lankan businessmen, to the Sri Lankan government, that they open a facility at Gwadar, so that means exports from Sri Lanka can reach Gwadar and from there go beyond to the Central Asian republics and China. This movement of goods under the CPEC is a futuristic opportunity, and I feel for both businessmen of Sri Lanka and Pakistan, it is a new frontier, and the government is very, very keen that it should develop. I would look at this as an opportunity, a great opportunity that awaits us, as long as we have the courage to keep moving forward with determination. Ladies and gentlemen, the third area is I want to talk directly to the Sri Lankan business people and to say, do look at Pakistan. Pakistan is now has changed in the last 2 years in spite of COVID. We've been able to improve our current account deficits. We've been able to build our reserves, improvements in our growth of investment. Just last year, we got foreign investment of $2.5 billion. Today, I speak to you as a businessman. I can assure you, today, Pakistan has made a very dramatic turnaround, and the country is now in a rapid industrial growth right now. I appeal to the business community of Sri Lanka to take advantage of this opportunity. Things are dramatically changing, and as a businessman, please come over and take your share of the investment. How has this dramatic change come about? Well, one very important factor was that our management of the COVID crisis under the direct supervision of our Prime Minister, our economy has shown a remarkable turnaround. I now say finally that we stand at a moment where our capacity to change our economic relationship is unmatched. What an incredible privilege that is for all of us. I hope that the B2B meeting will be successful, and that and I can assure you that this conference will be followed by more, and including perhaps Pakistan having a single country exhibition here in Colombo. And we would invite all the business people to come to Pakistan, and please do come and feel the pulse of industrialization that is going on. To conclude, the business community of both countries, we must not accept the current level of economic relations. We must imagine what that future relationship might be, and then work hard towards that future. I would like to take this opportunity to thank the Prime Ministers of the two countries for gracing this occasion, thank the dignitaries and the ministers from both sides. And also, I would like to thank the Ministry of Commerce and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Pakistan, who I know have worked very, very hard to prepare for this conference. And finally, I hope that the B2B sessions that will follow, I wish them every success, and I wish to welcome the businessmen from Sri Lanka to Pakistan, and let us together build a great economic relationship. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Excellency. May I now request the Honorable Minister of Foreign Affairs of Pakistan, Mr. Makhdoom Shah Mahmood Qureshi, for his remarks. Minister of Foreign Affairs of Pakistan, ladies and gentlemen.
Prime Ministers, Ministers of the Cabinet, participants of the first Pakistan-Sri Lanka Trade and Investment Conference, thank you. Thank you for participating in this first conference. I recall a year ago, we held a similar conference in collaboration with the Ministry of Commerce in Nairobi, Africa, in line with our Engage Africa policy, and it led to 7% growth in our bilateral trade in 1 year. So the potential, as the advisors is there. We have to look at how to improve upon it, how to include new sectors into it to draw maximum benefit from it. When Prime Minister Imran Khan took the reins of government, all our economic indicators were pointing in the wrong direction. In 2.5 years, we have achieved, to a large extent, economic stability. And now, the Prime Minister is directing us to focus on growth, and that can only come through investments and enhanced bilateral trade. Pakistan has moved up a number of ranks in the ease of doing business. Prime Minister's government is facilitating investments in Pakistan. Incentives have been given to a number of sectors, particularly real estate and housing sector. Our focus has shifted from geopolitics to geoeconomics. We feel that Pakistan is geographically so located that we can take advantage of our geographical location. And we want to make Pakistan into a hub for economic activity. Transshipment, it's possible, it's doable. And our focus is peace, development, connectivity. CPAC is one example of that project that links regions and provides that regional economic connectivity that promotes trade, that promotes investment. The Foreign Office is there to assist, to facilitate, and the focus of the Foreign Office under the directions of the Prime Minister Imran Khan is economic diplomacy. Ladies and gentlemen, you're welcome to come to Pakistan, and you will see how hospitable Pakistan will be for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Excellency. It is my privilege to request Honorable Mr. Ajit Newart Cabral, State Minister of Money and Capital Market and State Enterprise Reforms, to share his thoughts on this momentous occasion.
Honorable Prime Minister Imran Khan, Honorable Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa, Honorable Ministers, my dear friends. First of all, I want to thank the organizers of this Pakistan-Sri Lanka Trade and Investment Conference for inviting the Sri Lankans to share their cooperation with you. And I believe, as your foreign minister just mentioned, there would be great opportunities for us to move forward, and I'm eagerly looking forward to that. At the same time, I think it's a privilege to be able to speak when two prime ministers are there to represent their country's economic sphere, and I believe it's a very rare occasion to do that, and I'm actually very privileged to do that. Our two countries' honorable prime ministers have had a long way since we gained independence. You in 1947 and we in 1948. Over the last 70-odd years, we have broken free from many shackles of colonialism. We are finally beginning to think big into the next era where we are going to take our countries. I have listened to both speeches of the Pakistani Prime Minister as well as that of our own Prime Minister. And we have seen a thread which is common, where they are talking about bringing the poverty down, making sure that the fruits of development reach every sphere of the country's people, and those are very important outcomes that we all need to be looking at. We are also very concerned about the people of our country and about the destinies that they would carry for the future. Since 1947, Pakistan has been independent and we have been independent. But by 1992, in 45 years, Pakistan was able to win the World Cup under your current Prime Minister. We used to be very happy to watch him play cricket. Only when he plays cricket against us, we were not very happy. But nevertheless, we have been delighted with the exploits of Pakistan. Perhaps as a result of that, we also took the courage, and by 1997, 49 years since our independence, we beat Australia to become the champions. You beat England to become the champions. And those two countries, which were the two countries that started cricket, were both beaten by two countries of the subcontinent, Pakistan and Sri Lanka. So I think we have shown the world that we can do it. And now we are in the process of doing it. But we have not done so well in our cooperation with regard to trade and investment. As your foreign minister just mentioned, the targets that we have set for ourselves seem to be quite low, in my view. We shouldn't be looking at $300, $400 million of trade and investment. We should be looking at a lot more. The relationships that we have, the friendships that we enjoy, the way in which we have cooperated with each other tells us that we should be talking about trade and investment in the billions. Let's see whether today would be the day where we start on that journey, where today we will find ways and means by which we can cooperate to bring up those numbers that we should be actually reaching out to. We can cooperate, Honorable Prime Ministers, in many ways. We all have understood that there is a resource gap within our countries, and that resource gap has to be filled with investment. In the past, in the colonial days, many of those countries that have reached very high per capita incomes today didn't have to have the resource gap filled with investment. They had the ability to go to other people's countries and take resources, and today they have reached the levels that they have. But we have not had that situation. We have to reach out for resources, we have to invite investment, we have to take loans, and we have to reach out and make sure that our countries progress. So let's see how can we do that. We have to make sure that we invest in each other's countries. I was a former governor of the central bank, and my experience there tells me that we have been for a long time investing in the Western countries, investing in A-rated countries, which are given by various rating agencies, and we get 1% return. But when we go to borrow, we pay 7% return. We have to pay a 7% return. So we have, at the outset itself, we have an interest differential of around 6%, which we carry right throughout. So if you have reserves of $10 billion, Honorable Prime Ministers, you will have a 6% negative return on the total reserves that you have. $600 million is a lot of money. So I think we need to now think differently as to how we can cooperate with each other, where we can invest in each other's countries. Your State Bank of Pakistan, our central bank, should now be looking at ways in which we can cooperate. Those are the tickets in cooperation. We must reach out for trade within our private sectors, no doubt. It's a very important part. But we need to also look at these big tickets where we can make a difference in the way we would do business between countries in the future. Your Prime Minister, Imran Khan, made a fervent plea that there should be a moratorium post-COVID in order to give the support to the countries that need to have some space in order to deal with the pandemic. I don't think it has been responded to sufficiently. Our President himself made that plea. But unlike what happened at the tsunami, immediately after the tsunami, there has been too slow in responding to these calls. If you had 1 year's grace, where all the payments that had to be made in that year to the multilateral institutions could have been postponed by 1 year, it would have meant a huge difference to countries like Pakistan, to countries like Sri Lanka, who had to grapple with the sudden drop in our foreign receipts as a result of the pandemic, where all countries had to suffer. So let's hope that we can work together in achieving that kind of a global outcome, which is essential for the growth of our countries for the future. Pakistan is about a $300 billion economy. We are an $80 billion economy. And I think today, if we can work out schemes where we can have a trade relationship of at least $1 billion and then reach out further, would be a great day for both of us. Let's make it preferred destinations. Let's make Pakistan as preferred destinations from Sri Lanka, and Pakistan in turn to do so for Sri Lanka as well. Let's visit each other. Let's play a little more cricket as well. Maybe club teams, school teams, over 50 teams. Maybe I can also participate then. Women's teams. We can have different types of engagement on that nature. We can have exchange of students. We already have that. We have to be grateful to Pakistan for providing 1,000 scholarships to our own kids who can now study there. Let's make films together. Let's invest in each other's instruments. Let's organize.
नाज़रीन आपको बताएं कि श्रीलंकन स्टेट मिनिस्टर फॉर कॉमर्स इस वक्त
if you are to make this relationship really what it should be. Sri Lanka is also emerging from economic stagnation, which we have gone through for the last 5 years. I am particularly impressed with your foreign minister's position, where we should now move from geopolitics to geoeconomics. And why not? I think that's an excellent trend for us to maintain together. And whilst we are reshaping our economy, we would keep that in mind, Honourable Minister, because I think it would be an important way in which we could make sure that we can take forward our own country's economies. Sri Lanka has been able to go through a difficult period with the COVID pandemic, but yet maintain our low interest rates, maintain our rupee. Gradually appreciating our currency would be one of the steps that we would be taking for the future. A continuous pipeline of investments would be also looked at by us, the same way that you are. So come invest with us as well, the same way that Sri Lankans could invest with you. We have the port city, which is an exciting project. We would like you to come and consider making investments there, taking up positions there. We have the Hambantota industrial zone. I know you have some great industries going in Pakistan. You have the pharma industry, the pharmaceuticals. I met some of them last night, and it was a wonderful conversation that we had. Let's see whether we can have partnerships there, and let's promote a sustainable South-South dialogue and a South-South partnership. One of the best economists of Sri Lanka, way back in the 1980s, Dr. Gamini Korea, who was the Secretary General of UNCTAD, was the man who proposed the South-South cooperation. Unfortunately, initiative forward, and that would be a great tribute to a great man, and I think we owe it to him as well as to our own countries. Mr. Prime Ministers, I really appreciate this time and the fact that you have been the first visitor to Sri Lanka to come after the pandemic. We greatly value your steps that you have taken, and we hope this today's event would be the forerunner for a great partnership. I know when you say partnership, you have a different way of looking at it, Honorable Prime Minister. You have been involved in great partnerships. Let's hope that this great partnership would be a truly winning partnership for Sri Lanka and for Pakistan. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. And now, the moment we have all been waiting for. It is my great honor and privilege to invite His Excellency, Mr. Imran Khan, the Prime Minister of Pakistan, for his address. The Prime Minister of Pakistan, ladies and gentlemen.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Honorable Prime Minister, Ministers, members of the Sri Lankan business community and our visiting businessmen from Pakistan, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I want to thank the Prime Minister for one of the most enjoyable evenings I had in a long time last night. Partly because, of course, Corona, we never had evenings like that. But it was good to see the cultural show and a really relaxed evening, and not to mention the amount of food that I consumed that I haven't had for a long time. Ladies and gentlemen, my motivation in politics was only one: poverty alleviation. I struggled for way back in almost 25 years ago. I entered politics because I felt that the best way to reduce poverty in our country would be to set up a welfare state. Before entering politics, I had built a cancer hospital in Pakistan, and the only reason to build the hospital was that poor people could not afford the very expensive cancer treatment. So therefore, the idea to have a cancer hospital where a poor person could go in and not worry about the expensive treatment. But during that time when I was building the hospital, I began to realize that in a country of right now 220 million people, the only way you can help the majority of the poor people is if you build a welfare state. And so that was the motivation. And today, I must say, I had a very good conversation with the President because I realized that he also was motivated by poverty alleviation. And so the current problem in Pakistan which we face is food inflation. And so we were discussing how to bring down the prices of food items. And so we came up, he told me how he went to China, and he actually visited various farms from where he discovered that how the Chinese how they had reduced the gap between the wholesale and the retail. So previously, and in our country right now, what the farmers produce and what that produce is sold in the retail shops, there's a huge gap. And so the Chinese reduced that gap through technology. And so I must say, I thank the President because I'm immediately going to go back and bring in technology to reduce this gap. The other way we can reduce poverty is through investment, is through promoting profitability, business. And so that's my second emphasis right now. we have completely changed our policies in Pakistan, which have sadly been there for almost 40 years, where the whole government structure, the bureaucratic structure evolved such that it was an impediment in the way of investment and the business community. So this whole mindset we have been trying to change in the last 2 years and removing all the impediments, which translates into the expression ease of doing business. And we have really improved 28 spots. We've come down, our ease of doing business has improved according to the World Bank. And so the whole idea is that we generate wealth, and from that wealth we can then spend on the bottom half of our population and lift them up from poverty, which is actually what China did. And China, I must say, one thing I admire about them is that no country in human history has ever taken out almost 700 million people out of poverty in 30 to 35 years. It's never been done before. And so this is something which, your president and I had a long conversation. And of course, I've been emphasizing since we've come into power. So the reason behind backing our businesses, the business community and investment, is that if the final goal is to alleviate poverty, create wealth, alleviate poverty. The third thing you need to create wealth in any country is stability, is political stability, is having good relationship with your neighbors. Because one thing which Sri Lanka and we have had in common is that whenever you have conflict or terrorism, as Sri Lanka and Pakistan suffered from, then the first thing that it affects is the business climate, is investment, and in your case, tourism. In Pakistan also, but our tourism, of course, is not as developed as in Sri Lanka, but tourism also gets affected, and of course, Sri Lanka has suffered from. So, immediately when I came into power, I approached our neighbor, India, explained to them, to Prime Minister Modi, that the way forward for the subcontinent is for us to resolve our differences through dialogue and then improve our trading relationship and diffuse the tension. I didn't succeed, but I'm optimistic that eventually sense will prevail that the only way we in the subcontinent can get people out of poverty is have trading relationship, improve our trading relationship, live as civilized neighbors like the Europeans live. Germany and France have, God knows how many wars they've fought and how many millions have been killed fighting each other. But today, it's unthinkable for them to have a conflict because they're so interlinked together because of business. They're so interlinked, the trading ties are so strong, and especially after the European Union, that it's unthinkable that these countries could ever have another war. So similarly, my dream for the subcontinent is that we resolve our difference, and our difference is only one. It's the Kashmir issue. All we want is it to be resolved according to the United Nations Security Council resolution. And this can only be resolved through dialogue. What we've seen in the world in the last 20, 30 years, that when you have conflict between nations, it only breeds more conflicts. A nation goes into war to supposedly to solve one problem, they create 5 other problems after that. You have a war and the US goes into Iraq to finish off supposedly Al-Qaeda, but then you have ISIS in return. So conflicts are no way of solving problems. And I again give the example of China because President Xi specifically spoke to me. He said he also has problems with their neighbors. But all these problems are subservient to trade. Everything is subservient to investment and well-being and business. And so the same thing should apply in the subcontinent. We need to resolve our differences through dialogue, not through conflict. Because eventually, when you do not trade, when these huge, the subcontinent with almost 1.3 billion people, imagine the potential it has. It is one of the biggest markets. And the only thing, in my opinion, keeping it where it is right now, unfortunately, is that our inability to resolve our political differences through dialogue. I also feel that, and I want to believe that Pakistan can play its part in reducing the rising tensions between the United States and China. Some 50 years back, it was Pakistan which opened up China for the United States. It was Pakistan who organized the meeting between Henry Kissinger and the Chinese. So we hope that we can again play our part. We'd much rather be a country which, rather than becomes part of rivalries between countries, we actually become a country that brings other nations and humanity together. Back to Sri Lanka, we have a relationship that has huge potential for both the countries. From Pakistan point of view, I think the most we can learn from Sri Lanka is in tourism, because you have a much more advanced tourism industry compared to us. Pakistan has enormous potential in tourism, but it's completely, that potential so far is being discovered by local tourism, but not by foreign tourism. Local tourism in Pakistan has exploded. There are not enough hotels, guest houses to accommodate the massive tourism that has gone all over the country, specifically our mountain areas. For those of you who don't know, Pakistan has probably one of the most unique mountain sceneries in the world. Some of the highest peaks out of the 10, 12 peaks, almost half are in Pakistan, and along with the second highest mountain in the world. But it's a virgin territory. And why tourism has exploded in Pakistan? Because of the mobile phone. People go with a mobile phone, take pictures, put it on the Facebook, and that's how tourism has exploded locally. But I have been to a resort in Sri Lanka, and the way Sri Lankan tourism has is on a different level to us. So therefore, I brought a tourism minister here, and we would like to have contacts with you in developing resorts in most of our, not just mountain areas. Pakistan also has probably the most undiscovered religious tourism. For people in Sri Lanka, what is of great interest is the Gandhara civilization, the Gandhara Buddhist civilization. North of Islamabad was the center of the Buddhist civilization. And we have discovered various new sites for Buddhist tourists to visit Pakistan. We had a group of South Korean monks coming in who now have shown great interest in a trail where we would make it for the Buddhist community to actually make a trail for them all over where they can visit various shrines. We just recently discovered a 40-feet sleeping Buddha in Pakistan, which is quite unique. So apart from mountain tourism and religious tourism, we have a coastline, which is where we can, of course, again learn from Sri Lanka, because you have quite advanced beach tourism. Finally, I would like to ask the business community in Sri Lanka to participate in our CPEC project. CPEC is an initiative of the BRI, the Chinese Belt and Road Initiative. And it opens the opportunity, as our Commerce Minister just mentioned earlier, that it opens the opportunity of Sri Lankan businesses right up to Central Asia. It gives you an opportunity of connecting from Gwadar, which is the port, right up to Uzbekistan and the Central Asian states. And this is the connectivity which Pakistan offers, along with, in CPEC, we have these special economic zones, which give incentives to businesses to set up industry there. So I invite the Sri Lankan businesses, investors, businessmen. You can come over to Pakistan and we'll be hosting you. Meanwhile, we brought our Pakistan business community, top businessmen here, who will be interacting with you and discussing various ways which would be of mutual benefit to both of us, both the countries. I again thank the Prime Minister for inviting me to Sri Lanka. I extend my invitation to you, Mr. Prime Minister. We look forward to seeing you. And finally, about cricket, I saw the evolution of Sri Lankan cricket team from a non-test playing country into a country that actually won the World Cup in my hometown, Lahore. And I never thought I would see that happen. But the emergence of the Sri Lankan cricket team was actually, for us in the subcontinent, a source of great pride, because it meant that, it was another team which could challenge the best. And yes, the answer about more interaction in sporting relationship, yes, because nothing improves the standard in countries more than when you have countries playing each other in various sports. Number one, cricket, because this is a passion in both the countries. But in Pakistan, our squash teams have been of very high quality, and of course, our hockey team. So we would start our interaction in these areas too. Later on, of course, I'm going to a sports event, so I'll talk more about it there later on. Again, thank you. I want to thank our Ministry of Commerce and our Foreign Office for organizing this event. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Excellency.